Hey guys, CryptoDad here again, and today I'm going to show you how to configure and control dual light loop RGB fans from Corsair using the Lighting Node Pro module and the Corsair Link software. So let's get going. Okay, so I've set up a split screen here so that you can see both the rig and the Corsair Link software that I'm using to control it. Just a little bit of background about this rig. As you can see, I'm using the Corsair Crystal 570X case, I believe, the one with the tempered glass on all four sides. Nice case. And I have 6 Corsair LL fans and 6 lighting strips. Now, just in case you want to try to duplicate this, you should be aware that the Lighting Node Pro, which is the basically the unit that controls the lighting and gets put in the back of the computer usually. It's just a little box that sits back there. The lighting cables from the fans plug into the Lighting Node Pro. If you've never used Corsair fans with lighting effects, you would be aware, or you may not be aware, that these fans have 2 cables. One cable is for the power and speed, which plugs into either your motherboard or maybe a Commander Pro. And then the other cable is for the lighting effects, and that cable, that separate cable plugs into your lighting controllers. So in this case, I'm using the Lighting Node Pro to control all of my lights, and I'm not using the Commander Pro. You could, whichever configuration works better for you. I prefer to plug the power cables of my fans into the motherboard and use those controls for the speed of the fans. Now, as you can see, the Lighting Node Pro, oh no it doesn't, okay. If you'll notice here, there are no controls for the fan speed here. If I was using a Commander Pro, there would be you would be able to control the speed of the fans from here. But I've had some issues with the Commander Pro as far as sleep goes, and I opted to switch over. This is my configuration right now. Okay, so you'll notice that I needed 2 Lighting Node Pros to control all of these components, and the reason for that is that a single Lighting Node Pro only has 4 channels for controlling light strips. The light strips connect to each other, but if you try to connect more than 4 light strips to a single LED channel on the Lighting Node Pro, anything over 4 will not light. So I had 4 originally and decided to upgrade and get more, and I had to use a separate Lighting Node Pro for those additional 2 lighting strips. You'll notice those two lighting strips are in the front, and just so that you can see, those 2 that are in the front are on a separate Lighting Node Pro. This was the original configuration, just the 4. And you'll notice here that if you would like to turn these lighting effects off, the easiest way to do that is to go into the brightness controls. You can just take brightness down to 0, click apply, and you don't have as many distractions depending on your workflow, what you're doing at the time. I kind of like to leave the effects on most of the time, but there are times where I just turn all the lighting effects off. And you'll also note that you can control the effects across the Lighting Node Pros, but not the brightness. So I could turn brightness up all the way and change effects let's say on if we highlight the first LED strip here and go down to, let's say, static, for instance, change it to green, I can copy that effect across the two Lighting Node Pros. You'll see these are the two Lighting Node Pros connected to number 1, and then we can just click OK, and all of those effects get now. But we cannot actually turn on the brightness, because the brightness can only be controlled directly. So once you've done that, and then here you'll notice that I can also change effects and apply them across the other two. So here's Lighting Node Pro 1 and then Lighting Node Pro 2, and those effects can be controlled from either one of these, but not the brightness. So that's something you can take into effect. Alright, so I'm going to go back over here. Whoops. I'm going to go back over here to my main Lighting Node Pro control and switch this back to rainbow. And we'll just copy 2 and click OK. And then we're back to our original configuration. Now let's see what else this guy can do. I can click the first fan here and go down and change to the next effect, which is rainbow. And then I can click copy 2 and OK to copy that effect onto the fans, all of the fans. And then I can do the same thing up here. If I click on the first LED, move down here to rainbow, copy 2 and apply, or OK to get rid of it. Then the entire effect gets brought across all of the devices. You'll notice that that Lighting Node Pro 1 is a little bit out of sync. It's a bit of a challenge to get everything in sync, but you can try by using this. If you go to the control of the Lighting Node Pro 1, you can use that apply button to sort of get it reset. And if you time it just right, it's a little challenging, but it can be done. If you want everything to be in sync. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. I'm just not focusing on this right now, but it can be done to get the front one in sync with the rest of it. So that's one of the challenges that you'll face when you've got that separate Lighting Node Pro. All right, let's check the next effect, which is on the LED. And I should point out at this point that you'll notice here, this pull-down menu will tell you what type of fan that you're using, and I've chosen the LL fan here. You want to make sure that you've got the right fan selected, because if you don't, you won't get all of the effects. Let's say I've accidentally selected the SP fan. The fans can still be controlled, but they don't have all of the effects that the LL fan is capable of. So if you've installed the LL fans, you want to make sure that you've chosen the LL fan in this pull-down menu here, and then you'll have all of the effects available for you. So we've tried rainbow. And it's just a nice rainbow effect that sort of cycles through all the colors of the rainbow. And I think we've got that one demonstrated. Let's move on here and try color shift. And we'll copy that to all the fans. And you'll notice down here that I have it set to random color. So it could be the machine just controls which colors that you want. Now, if you wanted kind of an even effect or a consistent effect, you could use alternating, and we'll copy 2 on there. So it's just going to alter between the green and the yellow, and then we can mirror that with the LED settings. Color shift 2. And I had switched that, so let's check to see what we've got over here. We've got green and yellow, so we want to do the same thing up here. Let's change this one to yellow. And then we'll copy 2 across all the lighting strips. And we're going to get that nice, consistent color scheme. and you might have to play around with the first Lighting Node Pro to get everything completely synced up. It's not bad. And of course you can change these colors down here. You get color wheels. Now if you choose a particular shade of, say, blue, a nice light blue here, you can just take note of these numbers and use them when you do the fans. And we could just enter the numbers in there with a keyboard or a slider so that you can get a good consistent effect across all of your devices. And those are the color controls. So let's go back to that yellowish. It's not going to be right on, but pretty darn close. Alright, the next effect I'll demonstrate is the color pulse, which has a little bit of a delay. Get that across all of our devices here. And apply. And so there's a little bit of a, a darkness and then a color pulse. The sync is a little bit off, so you will need to go into the Lighting Node Pro control, maybe, and try to click that apply button to sort of get it right in sync. Not quite. Yeah, you will have to play around with that one a bit. Let's try there. Not bad. So just a few clicks to try to get everything timing-wise synced up. A little bit of a challenge, but worth the trouble. Let's go back over here to the next effect, which would be the color wave. That's a nice effect for the fans there. Now you'll notice that this color scheme. I set up this color scheme earlier. Now each of these effects can have a different color scheme attached to it, so that if you have some favorites, each time you switch to the new effect, the previous color scheme will still be there. So don't think that that these color schemes carry from one effect to the other. I set them up previously, and so this is kind of a cool effect. And let's see, what were we at here? Color wave. Color wave is available here too. Whoops, pardon me. We can do color wave here. Copy to. Slightly different on the LEDs, but a nice effect. That one's a bit busy, but pretty impressive to someone who's never seen a rig like this. If you have friends and family over, very nice. Now, and of course we can, we've got hundreds of thousands of color combinations we can use with this effect. We can switch this to random, which is fine too. It's kind of nice. So you're going to have a lot of different colors going on. Always remember to copy too, so that it takes the effect on to the other devices, our components, shall we say. All right, and let's go to our next effect here, which is static, which is pretty obvious. These guys connected with that too, so that we've got one consistent color. Now we can, of course, change that. We can use the sliders if we want to do it that way.
No, I didn't.
Let's just say we want to go all red. Just click OK. And then we copy that to all of the devices, and then we do the same for the fans. Just go down here and change to all red. Click OK. And a copy to. And there we've got a nice consistent static effect across the entire rig. The next effect I'll go through here is temperature. Now, the temperature has to, in order to have it, the colors of the fan change with the varying temperatures of the rig, you'll need the temperature sensors installed, which I don't have those installed. And I believe they're also connected to one of the, I think you might need a Commander Pro for those. I don't believe that there's yeah, I mean, I think it's possible to tie those temperature sensors into this overall temperature, the CPU temperature and whatnot. I've never tried to do that because I'm not I don't overclock my machine, so I've never really delved much into temperature controls of the color. But the idea is that, you know, green is a nice cool. When the temperature is nice and cool, the lights will be green, and as your temperature gets higher and higher, it will turn yellow and then finally red to let you know that the machine is getting hotter, which is a nice for the people that overclock, to give them just a general sense of how hot their rig is running. But like I said, I don't do the temperature thing. Now, visor is a pretty cool effect. A taste of visor. We can do that with the LEDs too. Let's see, looks like I have that on random right now. But it can also be set up for a nice color scheme. Let's do that, and I think I have that same color scheme available here. And then it's a little more consistent, not quite as busy as the rainbow effect or the random color effect. So choose a couple of nice colors that you think go well together for this effect. Pretty cool. And you can slow down the speed so that it whatever you think looks best. Okay. And let's check out the next one, which would be marquee. We'll copy that to all of these fans. And that's pretty cool. We'll do the same thing over here. And that's just a consistent single color, which you can use any color you like for this effect. We've chosen red at this point, but it can be changed to green or blue, and still look nice. So let's move on to blink. Blink is obvious what blink is, and as you can see, it's got alternating color there between the red and the yellow. And you will need to play around with the different lighting node pros to try to get everything synced up. Here we can apply to try to get those four in sync with the fans. It's a bit of a challenge, but wouldn't enjoy it as much if it wasn't a challenge. Alright, well, it's not perfect, but like I said, you can play around with it until you are satisfied with the way that the lights are synced. Keep in mind too that over time, if you let this thing run all day, the sync will kind of degrade. And then actually the effects tend to degrade over time as well. So depending on what the effect is, the static would probably just remain constant. Some of these more complicated effects do over time, they will occasionally degrade. They're not always consistently perfect over hours and hours of use. Just so you're aware of that. All right, let's move to some of the effects on the, I'm going to take the brightness down here on the fans. Oh, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to take the brightness down on the fans momentarily to go over some of the effects that the LL, I've turned the light strips off. So some of these effects that the LL fans have are sequential channel effect, which is pretty nice. And that's pretty nice. Now, one thing that you need to be aware of when you're building these rigs is that in order to get this effect so that it goes from back to front or front to back, however you want to do it, you want to make sure to label the light cables on the fans as you're building the rig, so that when it comes time to plug them in to the back where the Lighting Node Pro is, that you're consistent in the way that you connect these fans so that they're connected in an order that makes sense to you. So if you just randomly plug them in without knowing which cable goes to which fan, these sequential effects are not going to work out well for you. You'll have to take the rig apart and troubleshoot until you get them connected the way you like. And I'll demonstrate that in the last effect when we get to that. There was one thing that I did not realize. But for this effect, I did a pretty good job. I basically labeled each cable as I was building the rig with a number, 1 to 6. Each cable had a 1 to 6 label on it so that I knew which fan was front, middle, and back. So in other words, that bottom front fan was labeled 1, the second one was 2, and the top one was 3. And then the fans on the top and the back were 3, 4, or 4, 5, and 6. So something you need to be aware of when you're building your rig. So let's check out another cool effect here. We've got the arc effect, and this is one that I really like. Let's copy to. It's we've got kind of a double color effect going on here, and you can augment this with the lighting nodes as well. You can just maybe do a color shift between the two arc colors that you see that I've done there. And let's turn brightness back up again, apply, and then you'll remember you'll have to do the brightness over here on the other LED Lighting Node Pro that you've got. And let me get them all. So very nice effect, this arc effect. And there may be other augmented ways that you can configure your lighting strips. You could do a static color on the lighting strips if you wanted to, or any number of effects that you think might complement the arc effect of the fans. What I've done here. Oh, it's alternating. Okay. And then let's, whoops, done something wrong there, didn't I? Let's go back to that Lighting Node Pro 2. And down here to Heartbeat, which is another nice effect. We'll copy that to all the fans. So you've got this sort of pulsing. It's pretty close to that pulse effect. Slightly different though. Pretty nice. And then you can, it alternates, or you can do it random if you like. I'm not a big fan of that because each of the fans has a different color. I would like it more if it just sort of cycled between every single color, but they don't really have that. It's something they might want to add. In other words, I would maybe, instead of only 2 colors to alternate, maybe 6. And then let's check out this last effect, which I think is pretty cool, this Pong effect. And I will explain to you what happened when I installed these fans. You'll notice that the paddle color should be different. Let me do that. And copy to. So you'll notice there that paddle is that yellow light, and what's wrong with this picture is that yellow light on the front bottom fan should be on the top, but it's on the bottom. And obviously because I oriented that fan incorrectly to achieve this effect. Now, you know, of course, when you're building the rigs, you have a lot of things to consider. I probably oriented that fan so that the two cables coming off the fan were closer to a whole case that allowed me to run them into the back. But, you know, I'm not going to disassemble the rig and move that fan just for this one effect, but you might want to think about that. It's a good idea and the nice thing about this particular case is that you can take all of those tempered glass covers off and just kind of work with the skeleton of the case as you're building it. So if you're you know, wanting to make these fans completely consistent, you might want to make sure that you test them out in all the different configurations before you put the glass on the sides. You know, it's a little frustrating to have to tear down your rig to make a minor adjustment, but that's part of building a rig. Okay, so I think that I've shown you all of the nice effects that you can achieve with the Corsair fans and cases using the Lighting Node Pro software. And I hope I gave you a good feel for how the Lighting Node Pro software works and how you copy effects across different fans and devices. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave me some comments or questions if you have anything you'd like to know more about these, or maybe some suggestions that you may have discovered in your rig building and lighting adventures. So thanks again. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave me a like if you liked the video. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate it. If you check down below me, I've got some links to some basic newcomer videos, and which you might find useful. And if you check the other corner, I've got a link to one of my more recent videos for experts. And then don't forget to subscribe if you like my content. When you subscribe, there's a bell next to the subscribe button, which will allow you to be alerted whenever I post a new video. Once again, thanks for joining me.